Yeah, I can go on like that for hours. And that's why I love this instrument so much. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of Little Modular. First of all, please excuse me, I have my windows open in my studio because it's super hot here in Warsaw. And if I close this window, I will just faint and won't be able to finish this review. I'm super excited because I finally have it in my studio. Pulsar 23, as you can see, phenomenal instrument. I know I have been saying this a lot in my reviews, but this is super nice. I mean, I think this is by far the most inspiring and the most fun instrument I have ever played, and I've played with a lot of those. I was a bit scared at first, and it was not as easy and it was not as apparent at first, but it just took me a few hours, and every time I'm sitting in front of it, I'm coming up with some incredible, cool, funky, strange stuff that I would normally have not come up with, and it's just so intuitive and so hands-on. But what is it actually? Well, theoretically, it's a drum machine. It has 4 drum channels, but in reality, it's a full-blown semi-modular system, a synthesizer, because each of those voices could be something different, and it could be a synth, it could be a drone, a noise machine, you call it. And it's a really compact for what it does because of its strange and quirky architecture. Because what we have here is those things right here, the alligator clips. So we do not have those typical patch points, those jacks that you stick your patch cords in. We have those rods, and this does sound strange and awkward, and that's how it was to me. Like when I first saw it in the demo unit, like about 2 years ago, I was like, heck no, I won't be buying that. It's like super awkward. What is it, rods? I mean, it looks like nails. I could hurt myself with it, right? I did not understand this concept. It was kind of a hippie thing, for nerds. But in reality, it's a brilliant concept. And that's because you can become a cable. You don't need cables, actually. You can connect anything with anything just by touching those rods, and you become the cable. And the second part that it's really cool about it, that it reminds me kind of a Surge, modular. Surge was my first modular system, and to this day I regret selling it, and I will rebuy it soon. But what was really cool about Surge was that you can connect anything with anything without fear of destroying something. The same principle applies here. You can basically connect anything to anything and you will not break anything. So it encourages you to experiment and to have fun without worrying too much about, breaking stuff. Second thing about those rods here is they are actually really playable. And there are several advantages over the jacks. First of all, these do not take too much place. There are 119 rods on this unit, and it's not that obvious at the first sight. That's because they do not take a lot of place. If you would have 119 jacks, this would have been at least twice as the size as this one. These are really sturdy. I mean, it's just a metal rod. There's nothing you can break. It won't become loose. It's really hard to do anything with that. Actually, the whole unit is built like a tank, and I mean it. It's heavy as hell, okay? Everything is sturdy and feels solid. So that's the other thing I love about this unit. So you cannot break them. They do not take too much space. They are highly interactive. You touch them, you become the part of the machine. They are perfect for performing. You can just connect something for a while, or just touch it with the alligator clip, or with your hands. So for improvisation, for live setup, this is much better than a standard patching cables. What I love about this also is that it could be simple machine, but you can also go really deep with that. And in this video, I won't tell you about all this stuff, all the options, because it would just take 3 or 4 hours. Instead, what I was thinking is I wanted to show you the most crucial parts to get you going, because it's not that obvious at the beginning. So I will show you all the parts, all the modules that we won't need, and I'll just tell you a few words about them, but then we will focus on the most important stuff so you can start making sequences, start making beats. So let's start with the stuff you don't need. Here, bottom left corner, we have 6 rods. They are meant to be connected to the external jacks, quarter jacks that are at the back of the machine. So we can connect all 4 voices and both effects to that, and you can have them on separate jacks down back here, which is cool because you can just connect them to a mixer or to a patch bay and just process them independently, and you can have the stereo image set up nicely because this is a mono machine and all the voices are summed to a main output. So that's how you can split them. Here we have 4 attenuators, really simple. Connect something in here, connect the output from here, and then you can attenuate the signal. Simple as that. Here is a 4-channel MIDI to CV converter. By the way, you have a lot more than 4 of those MIDI points. You can just click learn and twist a knob on your MIDI controller, and you can control certain parameters on the machine from your MIDI controller. Here is a simple format jumbler, so you can connect some external gear like Eurorack, for instance, or some other synths, and you can connect any signal here, audio, CV, and it will just convert it to the rod, which then you can distribute into your system. Here is a circuit bending area. You have certain electronic components you can insert in your patch and just change it in some way. Also, you have some gate to pulses converters here. Here is the chaos, which is a combination of sample and hold and chaos, so random module here, combined with some sequencers. And here are some utilities. Up here we have some VCAs, some inverters, and some switches. Up here we have volume. Here is the effect section. Here is an LFO, and here is a simple expression area. So you can just touch those plates here, and this will send out a corresponding CV modulation signal. So we won't be talking about all of this stuff. What we will be focusing on today is this clock section here. This is a super important area to understand because this drives your whole machine. And then we will focus on this area, those 3 touch plates here, because they help you navigate the sequencer. And of course, I'll tell you about each of the voices and what those touch plates here and switches do. That's the plan for today. We have 4 voices, as you can see. Each of the voices has its own looper, and we have 4 banks of the loops. So we can switch between them. We can fire the loops from different points. And the loop is 4 measures, each of them 4 quarter notes. So it's 128 ticks. And this sequencer is really responsive and really high resolution. I mean, it's not MIDI. And actually, Pulsar feels like electroacoustic instrument. It reminds me in many ways of the EMS synthesizer. It's really responsive. That actually is the whole idea behind it. It's a sum of simple components, but all of them are highly responsive and highly independent, and they influence each other. So you will really quickly start to make some beats with often sound simple at the beginning, but once you start connecting stuff, it all becomes one breathing monster machine, which sounds like a real, almost acoustic instrument. But before we do anything, we will need to prepare a metronome. So up here we have the clocking section. First, we need to decide how you are going to clock the system. We have the internal clock option. We can stop the clock. so we can control it from some external clock, like from your Eurorack system. And we can also drive it with the MIDI clock. We will go with the internal. You can see here is the LED responsible for tempo. The range is really huge. It could go super slow and almost to audio range. So lots of options in here. Let's choose a moderate tempo. And up here we have array of clock dividers. So here you have the clock in or out route, which is really nice because it will behave differently depending on how you set this switch. If you set it to internal, this becomes clock out. So you can just distribute it to different parts of the system, or just, you know, send it somewhere else with those jacks here. But you also have different clock divisions up here. And the way I want to do it is I want to take the 2 clock division up from here and set it through the attenuator. So here is the attenuator in, then out from the attenuator to the mix in right here. So I can now have a metronome with a volume that I can control. Really neat. The second thing you need to do is you need to connect this, so 0.25 clock division to the reset in right here. This allows the sequencer to reset every 4 bars, and this will be really precise. So we will be synchronized all the time. And for starters, I recommend not to change anything. I mean, you can go totally crazy and have some polyrhythms, some amorphic, you know, rhythms, chaotic stuff going on. But not for now, for sake of simplicity, let's just be synchronized. Okay, you can go crazy later on, and that is all we need for now. Okay, now let's take a look at the plates here. We have add and delete. With add, you can play each of the channels, each of the instruments, and we have a switch here which is record, off, and play. If we switch to record, well, you can record. In the off position, you can just play it without recording anything. And in here, play position, you can play the sequence, but it will not record any presses. So this applies to all the channels. You can clock all of the channels independently. Here is the clock in, you can see. But we will clock it with the same clock for sake of simplicity. Now, what you need to understand, there are some combinations here that will help you to start recording. When the LED here is flashing, it's just a metronome. If you want to record something, you need to be, first of all, in the recording position right here, and then you need to press those 2 touch plates together, okay? And when you touch them and you press any and you press any of the touch plates here, it will start playing. But if you touch any of the plates here, it will play the loop from the beginning. Then it will play the loop from the second quarter of the loop, and from the third quarter of the loop, and from the fourth quarter of the loop. And I have mentioned at the beginning that there are 4 banks, and you switch the banks by pressing this upper one and pressing one of the touch plates, doesn't matter which one, on the channel, and each of those banks contains 4 different loops. So that's neat. We stay with the first one right here, and here is a nice tip. If you want to record something, you hold the delete button and you hold it, because this will delete whatever is in the memory, okay? And by the way, we are not recording audio here. It's all just recording events with really high resolution. First of all, we will press and hold delete. So we can start fresh off with the clean pattern, and I'll just record something, and when I'm happy with it, I'll just let go and this will be recorded. Also below here we have those 2 touch plates. If you press any of those, this will influence velocity. This is low velocity, this is high velocity. So if I won't touch anything, it's the high velocity, and this is mid velocity. So mid, low, and high. Or if you press both, there is also high. So yeah, let's start with something. Up here, this LED, when it blinks brighter, it shows you the first beat, but it doesn't really matter. You can just start whenever you feel, and you just need to know that you have 4 measures. Let's put the first channel in record mode, hold delete. If you want to start recording, remember those 2 and any of the channels. And now I'm recording. You can see the LED is solid. 3, 4. Here we go. And now if I go to the play mode, I can just jam with it. If I want to stop it, I'll just press those 2 right here. And I'm not sure if you have noticed, but those touch plates are super sensitive, and they allow you to play this like a gated instrument. So it's not just a percussion instrument. This could act as a drone if you hold it. So this means it is much more responsive and allows you for much more flexibility in constructing your different beats. If I want to play it again, I'll need to press those 2, and now I can stop it and I can play it from a different part of the loop. Because if you imagine this as a whole loop, these are different parts of the loop, and you can just start playing from different points of the loop. If I press those 2 again and start from here, okay, or from here, it will just play from different parts of the loop. Really convenient. If I'll put this in record mode and start playing it, whenever I play something now, it will overdub, so I will add to this. Okay, I can erase portion of the loop by pressing the delete. Or I could just stop the playback and just jam or play it. Okay, let's record something on this channel. So I'm holding delete and gauge the recording. Let's do the same thing with the 3rd channel. We can just stop and just focus on this channel, for instance, and I can adjust some of the parameters. Okay, and I can quantize it. I quantize the beat by holding all 3 of them and just pressing any of the channels. But this operation stops the sequencer. As you can see, it now blinks, so I'll have to restore it again. Okay, my playing was really bad, so it's not sounding good even when quantized. So it's best just to erase it. Okay? But as I said, quantization is not what this instrument is about. And that's the basic idea behind the sequencing. That's how you record beats, and that's how you overdub, stop, and play. Alright, so let's talk about the individual instruments. The first thing you notice is that they do share some common parameters on each of the channels. Down below, all of them have the add and delete touch plates. They have the mode switch for different playback settings, also the clock input for a separate individual clocking. They also have attack and release envelope on each of them. And also they have the envelope and trig rods. The envelope is the output of the envelope, obviously, and trig allows you to trigger the module from a different source. You can send this trigger somewhere else in the system. By the way, if you take a look at those rods, they have a super nifty and clever architecture behind them. Besides a label, you also have some arrows. One arrow pointing towards the rod and one arrow pointing from the rod. So this indicates that you can connect something to that, but you can also send that somewhere else in the system. And all of those rods are normalized in such a way that they will automatically mix the signals. So if you connect some signals to one rod, like 2 or 3 signals, it will automatically know what you have connected and it will act accordingly. So you can just connect anything in here and it will sum, for instance, modulation signals. Not to mention, of course, that you can use those alligator clips to mold signals just like you would do in your rack system. So you can think of those channels and parameters in 2 halves. So the lower part is same for each of the channels. You also have a volume and effects, so you can send each of those channels to effect bus here, to a reverb or delay, and volume here. So those parameters are same for each channel. Now up here is where it gets interesting. For the bass drum we have tune. Okay, I'll lower the effects so we have only the dry signal. So you can tune your bass drum. You can also apply some modulation. So this is the modulation of the beginning of the bass drum, so we get this boing sound. Okay? You can also drive it. So it's more aggressive. You also have the external input and out. This is also common for all of the channels. So we can connect external sound to this. And there is output of this channel. You can route it to anything. You can use it as a modulation source or as an audio source. Down here we have 2 really crazy rods. What the fuck? And oh my god, what the fuck is a circuit bending input for the pitch of the bass drum, and oh my god is a circuit bending input for the waveform, which is the source of this bass drum. You can also modulate the tune by that rod right here, and the amount of this modulation is decided with this knob. Now this bass I think this is my favorite channel of all of them, because it is in essence a full synth voice. Same parameters as here, but up here different parameters. This consists of a DCO, which is going to a low pass filter and to a drive section, to wave shaper. So yeah, that's the filter, and the filter sounds amazing. Okay. Here is the shape, which is the shape of the waveform. And the warp is how much we drive the wave shaper. And you can operate this in few modes. Okay, now you can see there is a switch up here which says PRC, which is percussion, MIDI and CV. And the PRC, this is just additional kind of bass like instrument, percussion instrument. In the MIDI you can control it via a MIDI controller, really nifty. And here it's just a CV based synthesizer. Okay. Oh my god, every time I play with that I get goosebumps. Okay. Here are the different shapes and the wave shaper. Yeah, so we can modulate the again pitch of it. You can also modulate the warp, and you can modulate the shape right here. We won't go into details because it's too much information. I want to stay focused just on the basics, as I mentioned in this video. Then we have the third. This is the snare drum. Okay, again, same as here below. Up here we have a bandpass filter with a really gnarly resonance. So watch your speakers. You can modulate the frequency. Here we have a clap, which is kind of like a delay. Like in this position, you will have immediate clap, but more you go to the right, you'll get like flams or something like that. Here is the tune. And with the mix, you decide upon the balance between pink noise and spectral noise, because those two sources are making up this beautiful, crazy channel. So it's just different flavors of the basic timbre. Hi-hat is similar to the snare drum. You just have a different noise source and you decide upon this noise with the warp. Actually, it's a wave shaper that changes the noise spectrum, okay? A tune, which in extreme settings, as you can hear, provides some really nice clicks, like a Geiger counter stuff. And we have a high pass filter with EQ, resonance. Right? And yeah, that's it. We're done with all the basics. In the next video, I'll talk about all the spices. I'll show you how to connect stuff, how to break the typical connections here and to make it more interesting. We'll talk about the LFO, effect sections, those CV generators right here, and all those cool little modules up here and the Sheos down here. But for now, we're done. Thank you very much. Have fun. I highly encourage you to check out this monster. It is not cheap, but it has exceeded all of my expectations. It just keeps on giving. Anytime you sit to it, it will give you awesomeness. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked that video, if you found it useful, please like, please subscribe so I can make more of those videos. And I'll see you later. Take care.